Hi, my name's Melody Norton-Evans and I'm one of the pelvic health physios here at Move 4. One of the things I frequently get asked is the difference between PT, personal trainers and pelvic health physios in pregnancy. And so we've got Ali here today from ETC and we're going to have a discussion about what the difference is and when you might need one of us or both of us. So Ali, what would you say is the biggest difference between PT and pelvic health physio for you in pregnancy?
I think the biggest difference is probably like in terms of what we do. So for me, my focus is on sort of the holistic approach of training and making someone move well. With pelvic health physio, there's sort of a lot more internal examination, sort of that sort of looking at the pelvic floor and stuff that I'm not qualified to do, I'm not allowed to do. So I think that's probably the biggest difference is like you're able to sort of internally examine, check for dysfunction. I'm there to help them move well in the gym.
Yeah, and for me, I would think all women who are exercising in pregnancy, whether they are gym experienced or not, they need personal trainers, someone who can guide them in physio in pregnancy. Their need and the way they exercise has to change dramatically over the course of the 3 trimesters.
Yeah.
And really, they don't need a physio for that. Where we come in is when there's muscle dysfunction and we can guide and help treat particular problems so that they can carry on exercising as much as they can. For me, postnatally, women, I would encourage them all to have a physio exam where we can examine internally, we can see any damage done from pregnancy and guide them through so that they're ready to go back to you in the gym and do it in a safe manner.
Yeah, and I'd do the same. I would always recommend, we've had people that have come and they've had their child, they've done their 6-week checkup, and it's like, cool, have you seen a pelvic health physio? And if the answer is no, that's my first port of call, is like, that's what you need to go and see first, because I don't know what's going on. I can't help you unless I know what's happening, and if I train you, there's chances that whatever I'm doing is going to exacerbate any issues that could be there. So I'd much rather they went to see someone like yourself and get checked, and then we work together on their return to exercise.
And I think for women who are pregnant, it's a really healthy way of thinking. It takes 9 months to grow a baby. It's really sensible to think it takes 9 months to recover. And certainly physiologically, we know that there are a lot of changes that actually can take up to 9 months, and they just need to be safe because they're at greater risk of injury. But we also want them to exercise and be fit for motherhood.
Definitely, yeah, totally agree.
I would say we need to work together.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the overlap is. I think, it's about dysfunction or normal function, and you keep the normal function and I treat any dysfunction so they can carry on working normally. Yeah,
I'd agree. There needs to be that approach from both people. And I think we've done a really good job so far of everyone that I've kind of sent to you and you've sent to me, of having that communication of like, this is where they're at, this is what they can do, this is what they need to maybe work on, and then just kind of having that dialogue is so important for their recovery.
Yeah.
So that's where the overlap is where we work together on any client that comes our way.
Yeah, definitely.
It kind of depends on where they are in their training. If they're going through pregnancy and training with this person, there needs to be a level of understanding of like movements need to change over time, and if they're not being adapted and changed to suit the movement patterns of that person as the baby grows and there's certain pressures that change, if that's not happening, then that PT doesn't understand the demands that are kind of being put on that woman's body. And in terms of recovery, like once they've gone through the pregnancy, if they're not prepared to ask questions like what kind of birth did you have, how far along in your recovery are you, have you seen a pelvic health physio, have you seen these people, if those questions aren't being asked, then they're not being looked after. Then that PT doesn't know what they're talking about either. You need to have that like understanding of every trimester is different, and every day is different almost for a lady coming in and training during pregnancy. And then on the other side, there's changes that you need to monitor, you need to be aware of. There's things that you need to know to make sure that they're safe. I guess it's probably the best way. Yeah,
and I think there are qualifications that you really want to be looking for if you're a pregnant mum, to make sure that you know you've got someone who knows all of those things, because you are quite vulnerable. And often pregnant women this is like a wake-up call, they want to be as fit as possible, and they'll suddenly decide they're going to start exercising and they'll go to the gym, and that's wonderful, but pregnancy is not usually the best time to start a new form of exercise without an awful lot of guidance. So I would say look for qualifications and people who are interested, because often our passion for this area of work comes through whether we're a physio or a PT.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, so many. I think the one that we hear the most is women that have had children long term, they're still having sort of pelvic floor dysfunction. They're like, oh, it's just what happens now. And it's like, no, that's not normal.
Yes.
It's something that you need to get checked, and it is something that should be checked.
They common and normal are not synonyms of each other, but they seem to be when it comes to pelvic health. And I've seen women, 18 months down the line trying to run marathons and not be able to do basic core work, and they're struggling. For me, we can get you healthy and we can get rid of those symptoms, but you've got to give yourself time and you've got to work with the professionals. The other thing I hear a lot about is there seems to be extremes where some mums will decide they're not doing anything for like a year.
Yeah.
And then mums will be trying to get back in the gym at 2 weeks.
Yeah.
My simple advice is no formal exercise until you're 6 weeks. It takes 6 weeks for the placental wound to heal within the uterus. And so that needs that time to just heal off. After then, you can go back with a lot of caution and a check from a professional. But I find that social media talks a lot to our mums about, well, you only had a baby. You have...
Only.
I don't know what only is supposed to mean.
Yeah.
You have had, for our mums who like to do nothing for a year, yes, you have only had a baby. But for those mums who are pushing themselves too hard, you have had a baby, and you need to find that balance. And it's a balance of just looking for people who can help you and guide you in that balance.
One of the biggest things I seem to have conversation with is like, oh, I've had my 6 week check, I'm ready to just get back to what I was doing.
Yeah.
And then there's that whole kind of guiding them through that conversation of like, well, you're ready to come back in the gym for sure, but you're not going to be getting back under like 100 kilo squats. We've had some super strong mums come through, and it's like, let's start you with just moving well.
Yeah.
That's where we start, and then you build from there. And it's that like misconception of, oh, after the 6 week check, it's all okay.
Yeah.
That's like just not the case.
For me, the big checks when a mum comes to see me are pelvic floor, which is what people are expecting from us. But the other thing is diastases.
Yeah.
And a lot of women will have a diastasis in pregnancy, and a lot of women will naturally recover that. But for those who don't, it's key that we get that better before we let them loose in the gym. They've got to have their core so that they can then move safely, instead of having their moving muscles trying to create stability, which is just going to create problems.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're checking. And then also a lot of women at 6 weeks check are quite surprised sometimes that they may not have had stitches checked or an internal, and again, that's where a physio can come in to make sure you're safe. The pelvic floor has been through a huge it's just been rigorous what it's been through. I often suggest to my women, I want you to imagine that you were carrying a bag for 9 months and you never ever put it down, not even at night time. How would your shoulder feel? Well, that's what your pelvic floor has done in pregnancy, and we haven't even got to childbirth. So it's got to have time to recover, and it will recover. The research is quite clear on that, but it does need guidance so that you don't injure yourself further or accept symptoms that are not normal as normal. For me, it would be having an awareness for a start that pelvic health physios exist, because often that's come from a personal trainer who knows what they're talking about, or someone who's come to me and said, I'm working and they started to change my pattern, or I'm starting to lift lower weights but higher reps. Instantly I know that they are working with someone who has got their best interests at heart and is paying attention to exactly what's going on in their pregnancy.
It's one of those, it kind of depends what you mean by pick up where you left off. If you've left off and it's like, well, we were focusing on quality movement patterns, you were focusing on sort of deep core movement and breathing, potentially, yeah, because that's kind of where you're going to start anyway, like building back from, not the basics, but building back from the things that you need for being a mum, being a human and doing life. That's where you'd start. And that's where you probably have ended your training as well. Like we're not forcing people to carry on doing back squats and front squats unless they're able to, but they're still squatting because they're going to have to squat to pick up a kid. They're going to have to hinge because they're going to have to pick up stuff and move with it. Like there's an element of that still continues when they come back, provided that they're safe to and provided they've had a check. And it's like, okay, they're okay to do these things. I'm never going to get them like, right, cool, welcome back, straight onto, you're going to run 5K. It's just not what we do.
Good.
Like, yeah, come on, you should be running already. Like, why aren't you? Like, come on. It's like, okay, well, let's move. How does that feel? What does this feel like? cool, okay, well, I've had notes from your physio, these are the things we're working on. Okay, well, let's do those things. How does that feel? Can you feel that movement? Is it something you're not sure of? I had someone come back recently, I think we're seeing you, and they were really struggling with just one movement within the rehab protocol that you were doing, and we just spent 20 minutes going through it and going, cool, let's try this. Can you feel it? How does it feel? Have you tried doing this? And it was just working with that lady to get her where she needs to be.
Yeah, I think for me, I take a very long history on their birth. Obviously, section mums are going to take longer than potentially mums who've had a vaginal delivery. That's going to be different. One of the things I explain to women is at full term, your abdominal muscles are roughly 50 centimetres longer than they were pre-pregnancy, and that takes about 6 months to recover for those muscles to shrink back down. So the core stability is just not there. And so there might be some mums who could potentially start where they left off, but when you're carrying your baby, those muscles are on tension, and all of a sudden they're not on tension. So I would actually say it's very few who could say, well, I was, doing 50 kilo beforehand, I can now go straight back to that. I would start most of my mums here in Move Forward, where we've got a gym. I'd start most of them on around about 5 tops to just get them used to working, get the proprioception working again, and then hand them back over to you guys to increase the weight as they feel confident.
Yeah.
But for some of our mums, it's reining them in.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing.
Yeah, for sure. It's that controlled progressive overload diet, which I've had conversations where I've been like, look, I'm going to have to rein you in a little bit. It's great that you want to go heavier, but we need to make sure that you're getting all these little things right before you do that front squat that you just lined up for. You probably just need to hold on just a sec.
Yes.
Please.
Yeah. From my point of view, if they're engaging with both of us, they're going to get better, quicker and safer, and therefore they're going to go a lot further in their training than they are without someone to guide them, particularly at a vulnerable point like that.
Yeah, nailed it. Is that they're going to be safe, they're going to be guided through the stuff they need, they're not just left in the wilderness, as it were, to suck it and see what happens, and then oh that didn't work, or that doesn't feel comfortable. They've got someone in their corner, or 2 people in their corner who know what they're talking about, that want the best for them, so they're going to find progress faster, for sure.
Yeah. I've practiced in pelvic health physio for over 20 years now, and it's uncommon to find someone who, like Ali, has those qualifications and has that passion. There's a lot of people who might have done a weekend course, and we see that within pelvic health physio as well. People have done a weekend course and then will work with pregnant mums, whereas there's a big difference in working with someone. So Ali, what would you offer our pregnant mums at ETC that I think is unique to Northampton?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is that I've been training and practicing as a certified pre and postnatal coach now for 3-4 years. I've recertified recently as well, so it's not like I've just done that weekend course and it's that I've got my thing, like a PT. You can get a PT course in a weekend if you really want it. I've been training and coaching for 5 years. I've been a pre and postnatal coach for 4, and it's all been based off of science-backed courses. It's not just something I've found on the internet. It's a recognised course. With that came training, came loads of information. I spent hours learning the craft and making sure that I was confident in what I can do. And then since then, I've just been trying to practice it at ETC. And I've had the pleasure of coaching quite a lot of pregnant women now, all the way through their pregnancy. And now they're kind of coming back through the other side and getting them recovered. So my experience has gone from just seeing my wife flounder through her pregnancy and not knowing what to do to now I can comfortably and happily guide people through pregnancy, get them feeling good, get them on to the pelvic health route and get you guys seeing them, and then get them back in and working back to being healthy and happy. That's what I do. That's what I love.
And I think it's important for most mums, when they come to see us here, will only probably need a 6 weeks check and a 3 month check. And most mums are okay. But if they need a bit more help, then here for us at Move Forward, all of those of us who work in pelvic health are fully certified with POGP, which means we have done master's level training for a minimum of a year. And so we can give you that time. But most mums won't actually need more than a one-off check, and that's important for them to understand.
Yeah.